Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers. Cheers to you all, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious or you've got a bit lost. Welcome. Come and grab yourself a nice hot brew, get yourself cozy, because it is very autumnal here now, which is nice because it's been a while coming. I mean, anyone who is still denying global warming, how much more evidence do you need? But we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on books. We're going to focus on feeling nice and enjoying the hibernation, snuggle up with a book joy that we all get from reading our favourite books. So I am Chatty. I don't think I've said that yet. My introduction is just going off today. But I'm Chatty. This is my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter. And I'm going to be chatting away madly about I'm wrapping up a bit of November. It's kind of sort of like mid-November wrap up ish, not completely, but I don't want to maths it, so we're just going with it. And I'm going to tell you what I've been reading, so I don't have a massive amount of stuff to wrap up by the end of the month. And I have a nice hot cup of tea and a cozy blanket, but I think I'm going to have to kind of just take it off because I'm one arm short. So I'll have some tea for the vocal cords. And it's nice and hot. I'm gonna try and keep drinking it throughout so that I enjoy it. Yeah, blanket's just lovely blanket, so fluffy. Gonna go on the knees and I'm gonna do my little gimmick. So I don't edit on this channel, it is one shot. We just keep rolling. Currently on the first, haven't done a second take. Too far into the video to stop now, so we're just gonna embrace all of the chaos. Hopefully there's not gonna be too much waffle, but we will see. So cheers everyone. And I have no notes, so who knows what I'm going to be saying. We will find out. So I've got 5 books to talk to you about. The first one is an adult epic fantasy. It is the 3rd book in the Mistborn Era 2 series by Brandon Sanderson. And this was a reread for me. So in case you're not sure, there is a new Brandon Sanderson book out this month called The Lost Metal. It has been very long awaited. Brandon Sanderson fans and fantasy lovers are pretty excited. I've got my copy reserved at the library. I've been told I'm first in the queue, so I fully intend to read it as soon as I get it. Fingers crossed. And I wanted to reread up until that point to get me back on the hype train, reminding myself what's been happening so far. I've had a brilliant time with the first 2, Ally of Law and Shadows of Self, and this one was my favourite. I kept enjoying them more and more as the series progressed, and on the reread I enjoyed them even more. Like on this second read, it's just so delightful. I really love the kind of in this one there's much more of a kind of found family motley crew feeling to it. And this is also the one where you see kind of characters' arcs kind of go through some sort of changes. So it has much more of a urban feel with more of a mystery and sleuth solving. When we get into this book, there is a bit more of a sci-fi element. There is new technology that's being explored. The overarching plot of sort of undercover working. I'm trying not to spoil it at the moment. Sort of undercover working of sort of like a plot that's kind of gone through, and then the other 2 books were like mysteries possibly linked, but not necessarily confronting the bigger picture head on. We get the bigger picture head on in this one. And that I think is as much as I can say without spoilers. So if you haven't read the Bands of Mourning, then please skip ahead to the next bit. And if you if you haven't read it but intend to, yes, if you want to read this, don't listen to spoilers. Just don't do it. Why would you? You have plenty of warning. Skip ahead now until either I've got a different book in my hand, but I do timestamps, so it's quite easy for you. I'm making this very easy. Off you go. So spoilers. We finally get to see Wax confront Soot, his uncle. We get we get kind of the build up to that. There's hints about Wax's sister in this one. If anyone has had a difficulty with Wayne's kind of problematic behavior when it comes to not taking no for an answer in a relationship, he's still pursuing a woman that clearly shows she's not interested in him, and he does not get the signals at all, to the point it almost verges on slightly annoying stalkerish behavior. Not completely, he's not like camping outside of her window or anything like that, but it's very clear to everyone else that she's not interested in him. And finally this hits home in here, so that is dealt with. So anyone who's having a problem, it gets dealt with in here. What also gets dealt with is Wayne's dislike of Steris and how he's been quite anti-Steris. That gets dealt with. Marisi has a chat with Wayne about, yes, she initially had a crush on Rax, but it wasn't reciprocated and she's over it. And all of that, I love healthy relationship content, and that gives me all of the healthy relationship content that I need. It was fabulous. There are much more interesting kind of ships developing in this. And in this book, if you hadn't appreciated Steris already, this is where she gets to shine and everyone gets to appreciate Steris. I enjoyed Steris from Alloy of Law. She is one of my favourite characters. I just admire her organisation. I love her organisation. I love her dry deadpan practicality. It's wonderful. She kind of won me over with her marriage contract in the first scene she had with Wax, where she was writing in just like any possible outcome she wrote into that marriage contract. So she'd got, like mistress allowance in there, like, she wasn't going into a marriage of convenience blind. It was really funny. And so I really kind of appreciated her for that. And then we get to see more of her in Shadows of Self, and I'm like, yes, I really do think that Sanderson is showing us that we are allowed to like this character. She's not just kind of being written as this really like uptight woman and kind of like a foil to Marisi. She's a character in her own right, and she fully comes into play in this one, and I just love all of that content. I love Marisi in this as well, how her character grows, how she finally works out who she wants to be and what she feels about herself and her own self-confidence in who she is. I really appreciate that in this, and in this as well. And I really like Wax's relationship with Harmony in this as well, and where he fits in to the story and to life. All of that is kind of explored more and answered, and I really appreciated that. So in terms of character work, there's a lot in here that works so well. There is a lot of humour in here. There is a fantastic scene where they book into a hotel, and the combination of characters just combined together to just really freak out this person who is running the hotel. And I absolutely adore that scene as well. It's wonderful. The way all of the characters use their strengths together, I absolutely adore. The new information we get in this is so much fun. I have theories in here about how things might play out. There is a link to the novella in this one in terms of the chronological. The novella, The Secret Mistborn History, comes at the end of era 1. So after you've read era 1, you could read The Secret History, but it makes more sense to read it after this one, because otherwise the kind of epilogue is spoilt for you about what could then happen. And certain questions I had when reading this for the first time about how certain things are possible now make sense from having read The Secret History. And I am so excited for The Lost Metal now, given all of this. I love the technology we were introduced to. I love that the world has expanded. I love the kind of relationshiping in between that. And I cannot wait to read The Lost Metal. I had a wonderful time with this and excited. And I've just realised I haven't planned in reading The Secret Mistborn History, but I absolutely need to do that before I read The Lost Metal. But it's a novella. I will be able to do that quite easily. So it's all fine. It's all fine. Okay. So that was my only book that was kind of left over from October. And now I can move on to the books I had planned to read in November. So the first one I read was Kidnap on the California Comet. This is the second book in a middle grade mystery series called Adventures on Trains. I read the first one, I think it was back in April, and I did really enjoy it and want to keep reading, but it just kind of didn't fit in. But it really worked with one of the prompts I got in November, and I'm so pleased I read this because I love this so much more than the Highland Falcon Thief. I don't quite know why. I think I was more interested in the mystery, and I don't know, I think because you'd kind of already met the characters and you'd kind of got an affection for them, it seemed to flow. It just seemed to flow a bit more. I like the combination of characters we got in here. I enjoyed the relationship between Harrison and his uncle, and how that kind of continues and develops, and how they both love trains, and we get more of Harrison's love of art and how important it is. We also kind of get an insight into kind of like children solving mysteries versus adults solving mysteries, and like certain like pros and cons of being a child and being an adult. And that even though you are trying to solve a mystery and you're trying to like do all these things, there is also kind of like a line that maybe you shouldn't cross, and you need to think about what is acceptable behavior and what isn't acceptable behavior. And I think this is done really, really well. And also that frustration of being a child and not having adults necessarily believe you. This was a really fun read. I really enjoyed the atmosphere you have about being on this train going through all these different landscape. The fun of just finding like friends on like a holiday and just getting to know other people, and just the solving of the mystery was a lot of fun as well. I really, really enjoyed it. There were moments when I thought I got it and moments when I thought I didn't, and there were certain bits I didn't get. So I really enjoyed how it all came together. It was really good fun. I partly listened to this on. I listened. I read most of this through audiobook. There were just a few bits that I'd read physically, but I wanted to make sure I definitely had the physical copy because trying to find a decent. There's lots of illustrations throughout this book. I'm trying to find like there's a particular one that I'm looking for, which is why I'm flicking through. I'm also trying to make sure I don't spoil a load of stuff. Yeah, here we go. So you get a lot of like Harrison's artwork in here where he's deliberately like drawing what he sees, and that kind of leads to his kind of observation skills, and that is covered a lot sort of within this book. But what was also fun was when I was listening to it, I was kind of imagining things how the artwork is. So when I was reading why I'm trying to twist that way. When I was reading, when I was listening to the audiobook, the way it was visually playing in my head was the way the illustration style is. So it was really fun to kind of like see the descriptions happening, kind of taking place as Harrison was drawing them in his sketchbook, and then leading it into kind of more of a colour version and the characters doing things. But it was all in my head, it was all 2D. I didn't imagine them as like live action people. I very much imagined them as drawings, which was really fun. And then what I liked was then going through this and seeing if things were the way I pictured them, which was no. But yeah, I had a great time listening to it and looking at the illustrations in the book. And I did kind of read sort of like more towards the end, I just read it physically. I think I just needed to kind of hurry it. I know you can listen on like 2 times speed, but I think I wanted to kind of be in control of the pacing, which is why I didn't listen to the end on the audio. But it was really good. So if you enjoy mysteries, this is a really cozy mystery, and I really highly recommend this series. And I'm looking forward to continuing with it. Oh, did I say? I didn't say who it's by. It is by M.G. Leonard and Sam Sedgman, and it is illustrated by Elisa Paganelli. And then I read Treacle Walker. So this is a book by Alan Garner. And I don't know if it's classed as a novella or just classed as a novel, because it's novella size, but that could be because I'm a fantasy reader and fantasy books tend to be 400 pages plus generally. They tend to be really big. So when you get a book that's this, I immediately think of it as like a novella, but I don't know if that is its official classification, but I just thought I'd bring it up. It's very weeny, which is good, because I wasn't sure how well me and this book would get on. I was intimidated because it was down as a Booker Prize winner potential, but I really enjoy the cover. I love the picture of the horse. I've read a few stories where they have this kind of like chalk artwork, and I really enjoy that. So this book is about a boy called Joe, or Joseph. See, now I can't even remember if he was referred to as Joe or... No, yes, he is referred to as Joe. Yeah, it's not me going crazy. It's a boy called Joe who encounters a couple of very different characters. They're quite absurd characters. So you have a character called Treacle Walker, who is a travelling salesman, and sells different things and gives you different things. And it doesn't quite all make sense. It's all very kind of absurd. And then there's another character who is sort of within the nature of the land and is also quite absurd. And this book and me, we didn't work. It wasn't bad. I didn't hate it. I didn't find it annoying or anything. I just didn't fully get what was going on. I didn't get it. It didn't click in my brain. It didn't make sense in my brain. I don't know if it was supposed to make sense. I don't know if it was being very metaphorical or what it was doing. I enjoy kind of weird and oddities in what I read, but this was too absurd for me. So like, for example, I enjoy the randomness of Terry Pratchett. I enjoy the whimsical of middle grade, where you get talking spoons and things, but there does tend to be a kind of a logical kind of pattern to the story of what's going on. And in this, I just found myself wondering, where does this child live? Why does he appear to be all by himself? Who's looking after? Who's his guardian? Where are his parents? What's going on? And that wasn't the point of the story. Like, you didn't need that information for the author to be able to tell you what they wanted to tell you. But whatever it was I'm being told, it went over my head. I can see there's a circular plot, the way it kind of finishes, all, you know, in what was opened in the story, that's all tied up and closed, and kind of the story would then be continuing. But I didn't quite get what we had learnt by the end of it about anyone or anything. It was a bit too out there and random for me. So if you like literature books, if you enjoy reading prize winner books, then you may enjoy this one. It's not my forte. I don't know what I'm reading. It was easy to read in that I could absorb the words and I could tell you plot points of the story, like, oh, this happened and then this happened, but why it was happening and what it all meant, no, not got a clue at all. So yeah, it didn't work for me, but I read it and we can move on. I really don't have any more to say about it. Sorry. So now we're going to move on to, this wasn't originally on my November TBR. I had put, this is the second book in the Ember in the Ashes quartet by Sabaa Tahir, which is a YA fantasy. And I originally planned to read the third book, A Reaper at the Gates, in November, because I presumed I'd read this in October. But when I'm doing a buddy read with Anitha and some other people on Discord, and Anitha said she didn't think she was going to get around to finishing it in October, I was like, great. Good. I'm not going to try. I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to push myself to try. And quite frankly, I don't know where I would have fitted it in. Even if I had tried to, I don't think it would have happened. So I've just swapped it with Reaper at the Gates. So it's taken its place. So A Torch Against the Night, it picks up exactly where Ember in the Ashes left off. You immediately are thrown into the action. So it's like a continuation of the climax. So Ember in the Ashes has a climax and it has a resolution. Characters headed off to do what they need to do in the next part of the story. And then this book starts, and it's not like a slow, easy win, gently beginning, just kind of characters dealing with what they've just been through. It is very much, it's still going. It like, you kind of hoped, okay, what was all fine at the end of Ember in the Ashes. And then it's like, oh no, it's still bang in the middle of the action and things are still happening. Okay, fine. There's no breathing space. There's no breathing space for anyone. It's just full throttle. Carry on, everyone. So in this book, I don't even want to tell you what the viewpoints are because I don't want to ruin Ember in the Ashes for anyone. So we continue to follow characters from there. We meet other characters again. We meet new characters. This one very much has like a journey feel, kind of like a cat and mouse game to it. There is a lot of tension in here. It's a very dark world, and we continue to see the darkness that was in Ember in the Ashes. It's still a very physically hard world. There continues to be a lot of violence, on the brink of war, a lot of discrimination, a lot of violence. There are continued character emotional relationships, friendships, as well as potential romantic interest, and family, what's the word? Family love as well. And all of that is continued to be explored in here. And I now want to go into spoilers so I can talk a little bit more about this. So if you plan on reading the Ember in the Ashes quartet and you haven't yet, please move along. I'm going into spoilers and I don't want to ruin it for you. So leave now. Right, I'm just going to have some more tea whilst I wait for people who need to go. Still on the good end of warm, which is great. Okay, so we are following Leia, we are following Elias, just gonna double check, yes, Leia, Elias, and Helene. You get Helene's viewpoint in this one as well, which is which I really enjoy. So I really like the characters of Leia and Elias. I enjoy their relationship together. I enjoy the things they're dealing with, and kind of seeing their growth as they go. But the character I am most interested in is Helene, because I think as a teenager I would have absolutely adored Leia, because it's got trying to be strong, doing the right things, being kind, all of those wonderful attributes. Helene is in a really difficult situation. She's been brought up very differently. She has been brought up, neither Leia and Elias were brought up in their childhood to believe in the Empire, whereas Helene was. Her family are aristocratic. She was brought up to believe that the Empire's rule was just, and it was, her family we need to support this. The status, the loyalty, our house honor, all of those things matter. Whereas Leia and Elias, having been brought up on a much lower level, can appreciate what it's like to be at that lower level, and kind of be downtrodden by other people. And it's not going to hurt people they care about if they don't follow the rules that have been set. So it's much easier for them to rebel in that sense. whereas Helene respects her family and is loved by her family, and for her the thought of doing something that is not what the Empire want her to do feels very, very different. It feels much harder for her to do that. At the same time, she has such an emotional connection to Elias. You know, she is in love with him and he's her best friend, and she has basically grown up with him. So all of the things she's being told to do feel alien and kind of against that. So she is in such a tricky situation. It's so fascinating watching her character. She is also in the difficult position of being a woman in a man's world. There is a tradition that a woman, that each of the, what's the school called? So there's this elite like military school, Blackcliff Academy, and every year they will take a new crop of, they'll just get a crop of children, and one of them will be a girl. And they don't always survive. Like most of that year group, they won't, like there's various different levels, and at each level people will die. Will be left, they won't survive. It's like a massive survival of the fittest and the strongest kind of mentality, which is sickening for us and the normal for this harsh world. So she's done a lot to prove herself. She's like top of her class. She's now in this position of being Bloodstrike, which is second only to the Emperor. But the purpose of the Bloodstrike is absolute loyalty to the Emperor, whose decision she does not necessarily agree with. So that is a lot to kind of be dealing with. She's trying to prove herself, get the respect of everyone, that she is worthy of being followed. At the same time, she is unsure what the right thing to do is. She is aware that the people she's kind of supposed to be working for and with don't trust her and don't like her. So it's really fascinating watching her character and seeing her character. I don't always want to agree with her decision, but I can understand what way she's being pushed and pulled. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this book. There were some other really intriguing characters in here as well. I found Cook very intriguing. I've had to really rethink my imagination of Cook, because as soon as you're introduced to her, my brain did that, like, stereotypical, you hear the word cook, immediately this is a woman in, you know, at least over 60. She's round in that kind of jolly, warm, cookie, floury, elbowed way that you would expect. So she kind of has like very big, like warm grandma vibes when I hear the word cook. That is not this character. And as you read Ember of the Ashes, like I was slowly kind of like adding layers to her as I realised, oh, she's heavily scarred. She's like been through trauma, or she used to be a rebel, like all this stuff to her. But then suddenly she's like limbering around in trees, suddenly like behind you, like this ninja. So I'm like, hold on, I'm just gonna, well, first of all, she needs to take off her apron because this isn't going to work. I need to redress her. I need to kind of like muscle her up a little bit. So yeah, I'm just trying to get my visual image kind of fitting for this so I don't want to laugh. So like my brain is still like, it's Cook, she's in an apron. The chef hat isn't there. She didn't have one of those, so at least that's one thing. But she has an apron, so that needs to go. But I really enjoyed her. Suddenly she's like this stealth character that appears and has confrontations with people. And I'm like, oh, what is your end goal? What are you going to do? What's your play in all of this? So I'm really intrigued by her, and I feel there's more to come out about her, which makes me excited. There was stuff in here that I wasn't expecting. We got kind of hints of a greater picture going on, and we get a little bit more about what that might be in here. But the way it kind of happened, it was done really well. I think Sabater here did a really good job at dropping possible hints, but were really subtle that you didn't, I did not get the kind of the reveal moment until it was revealed. So I was very impressed, and then but when it happened, it made logical sense. Like there was something where I was like, well, something's dodgy. It felt dodgy as things were continuing, and then suddenly it's like, oh, but I didn't expect that. That is a big change, but it makes complete sense. Like I absolutely, because I was like, how is that possible? But then as it came out, I was like, that is possible, like completely. Wow, okay, well done. And I'm really intrigued as to the Soul Catcher. I'm excited to kind of find out more about her. I was kind of expecting Helene to use her magical healing powers again, which didn't happen. And actually that is good, because it kind of feels like that would have been a bit of a cop out compared to like she's already used them to save someone previously. All of the characters felt really, really truthful. Like, so I really enjoyed Ember in the Ashes, but I felt like it could, like, as the story continued, I wasn't sure if it would feel as strong as we kind of continued down the paths. But this feels like an even stronger book, because all of the layers you had in the characters before, you now get them more in this one, and the world has widened and the plots are kind of coming together, and it makes a lot of sense. So I'm very impressed with Sabaa Tahir, because I think my expectations were a bit lower. And so that's great. I'm really excited to carry on reading. As someone who reads a lot of adult epic fantasy, where I enjoy kind of the slowness of the story and the world building and the layers and the character moments and kind of the breathing in between the action, it was really fun to be reading a YA where it's action. It doesn't stop. The pace doesn't let up. You still have character moments, but they are kind of like heightened emotion. The whole book feels like very heightened emotion. But it just feels kind of like a really kind of good time just getting through it. I wouldn't be able to read a lot in one go of this type of book, because I think it would exhaust me. So that's why it's wonderful being a reader who like enjoys many different things, because it can break it up for myself. But this series I am really enjoying, and I'm very much looking forward to reading the third book and finding out what happens next for everyone, where this story is going. I'm having a great time with it. Whoop. Whoop. So my final book that I'm going to talk about is, again, it's another series, it's another buddy read, and that is the wonderful Skycircus by Peter Bunzel, who up until this point I had been calling Bunzai, because seeing it written down, it's definitely an L here, but on other things I've been reading it was kind of done as like that, a lowercase L, which I just immediately thought of as an I. So I've been calling him Peter Bunzai until this point. Peter Bunzel. It's Peter Bunzel. There we go. Now you know the author's name. I'm pronouncing it correctly. And I also do want to mention it doesn't have it. It will have it here somewhere. The illustrator of this, because the illustrations are amazing. Becca Statlander. Becca Statlander did this fantastic covers for the Cogheart series. They are just amazing. They do look like Victorian kind of moving images artwork. It's so much fun. This is the third book in the Cogheart series. Myself and Vidania from Vidania Silver Scribe are doing a Cog along. So we are reading one book a month. This is the third. There are 4 in total. So we'll be finishing out the series in December, which I'm excited about. And we've both said that each book we love more than the previous one. So I enjoyed Cogheart, thought it was great, enjoyed Moonlocket a bit more. I really enjoyed Skycircus. Like, I'm really fond of all these characters now. I love the world and the atmosphere that Peter Bunzel has created. It's like Victorian London steampunk. So instead of having like robots, they are all like cog mechanicals. They're like all done clockwork. You have to wind them all with keys, and Peter Bunzel has got a YouTube channel, which I recommend going to check out because it's really interesting hearing him talk about what inspired him. And he goes on to kind of show you these wonderful kind of like Victorian clockwork mechanism figures who do things like playing chess. And that inspired his mechanicals and things in here. So as you can see, we have a mechanical fox here, Malkin, who is one of the three main characters. And we have Lily and Robert. And this time they find themselves flung into this adventure in the Skycircus, which is a travelling circus that gets around by airship. And here we meet some new characters, and this is Angelique, and they encounter some hybrids. So hybrids are people that are part human, part mechanical. So they have got clockwork aspects fused onto their bodies, and there is a lot of prejudice around hybrids. People do not like them. They are shunned. They are thought of as aliens and things. So again, in this book, there are always kind of hints of kind of Victorian penny dreadful feelings. And in this, it kind of addresses the idea of people being different to us, being looked at as freaks. So the hybrids are seen as the freak show in the circus, which feels as awful as it's supposed to feel. So a lot of prejudice is explored in here, and I really enjoyed how this all went together. There are some links to the past books, particularly Cogheart, that goes in this one, and there is what's the word? There's a lot of kind of thinking about working together and everyone being the same, and having belief in yourself, and you make the choices. All of those things kind of looked at and explored. So we continue with Lily and Robert facing their fears, kind of going through their emotions, exploring what different things mean to them. Like Lily's always felt that her dad is kind of overprotective of her and is not letting her live her life because of what happened to her as a child. And so she does kind of confront that a bit in this book. The only thing I will say about these books, and I'm aware, again, I am an adult reading a book that is designed for children in the 9 to 12 age range, but I feel the message is sometimes layered on a bit thick in what is the point we're trying to get here, and like the speeches and hiding something from your friends. I think a bigger deal was made of it. I don't think it should have had such an emotional reaction to people, but I can understand the point in the story and kind of what it was trying to represent. It just wasn't quite hitting as well as like the rest of the story hit. And you know, there are wonderful kind of inspiring speeches, but it feels a bit too message hammered home. But other than that, the adventure I absolutely love. I love the characters, I love the atmosphere in this world, and I'm having a great time with them. So there we go. These are the 5 books that I have been reading so far in November. I will see you with the rest of the books that I finish in November. I'm hoping to finish all the ones I said I would, but we will see, because you never know. What have you been reading so far? Have you found a new favourite? Has there been a book that's annoyed you? Have you not really been able to read stuff because of whatever reason? Do let me know in the comments. I always love a chat. Happy reading, everyone.